Thank you so much for joining us here on SlyMedia TV. We continue to find information, and we continue to speak about issues that are affecting the people of Zimbabwe, the community of Zimbabwe, or the nation as a whole, especially in times like this when the economy is shrinking. A lot of people have got so many things to say, and because of the fact that they are disadvantaged in so many areas. In today's program, while we are also looking at commemorating the day of the African child, especially the girl child. With me here we have Elizabeth, who is going to speak with us some of the things that she feels there's need to highlight those issues in life. Welcome to the program, Elizabeth.
Thank you so much, Sly.
Yes, as a point of departure, I would want to maybe understand who is Elizabeth.
Good day to you all, Zimbabweans and everybody all over the world. I am Elizabeth Mucheche Parirenyatwa. I am born 1979, just before Zimbabwe attained freedom. And I grew up in Highfields. I was born at Highfields Polyclinic. And I grew up in Highfields, born of Luke Mucheche, brother to Ben Mucheche. My family have been in the industry of transporting Zimbabweans in and around in Zimbabwe. I'm grateful to God that I am Zimbabwe and I am Africa. And I did my education at Chipembere Primary School, secondary St. John's, Chikwaka, Howard High School, and then after that I went to Zimbabwe Prison Service, where I trained as an ordinary officer. My first station was Kadoma Prison. I learned a lot to do with interacting with different people from all walks of life, be it the officers or the incarcerated convicted people, and that gave me a platform of knowing who people are in Zimbabwe. I later on, when I left prison service, I went to do my diploma in agriculture at Blackforbie College of Agriculture, understanding the fact that Zimbabwe needs food security, Africa needs food security. So as I stand here, I am thinking to myself, as a child in Zimbabwe, as I commemorate even the death of young people that were brutally murdered in South Africa, I think about how difficult it has been for Africans to lobby for their own freedom, for lobbying for their own independence. It has been so difficult, so much that most of the time when we talk of freedoms, we're talking of young people. We're talking of as 16 years old fighting so hard for their own freedoms of education. Here in Zimbabwe, I know that a lot of war veterans, they went to war probably at the age of 15, at the age of 16. Where are the grown people in Zimbabwe? Where are the grown people in Africa? Why do we wait for things to get into a very worse situation for us to attain all the freedoms in Zimbabwe and all the freedoms in Africa? I feel like as a woman and as a girl child, I've got a say. I'm a custodian of Zimbabwe, and I've got a say in all the freedoms that I've got to do with Zimbabwe.
When you say you're a custodian of Zimbabwe, what do you mean exactly? And you didn't tell me about your second name, did you? You said you are Mucheche, right?
Elizabeth Mucheche Parirenyatwa.
How are the two related, Mucheche and Parirenyatwa?
Okay. I'm born Elizabeth Mucheche, born of Luke Mucheche and Geli Masiwa. And then I got married to a cousin of Dr. Parirenyatwa.
Okay. All right. Right. Let's come back to the situation that we are in right now. This is 40 years after independence. We're looking at the girl child in Zimbabwe. Is a woman really free in Zimbabwe?
A girl child and a woman is not free in Zimbabwe, neither in Africa. I wonder why they've left it to become like that. Because when white settlers came to, then they called it Rhodesia, they argued with Mbuyane as a person, a woman leader, and she died for Zimbabwe, dying for just being a custodian of our mineral reserves. And us as human as we are, we're also a very integral part of our lives. So she fought for that. And it led to the first Umvukela, the first Chimurenga. And when they went to the second Chimurenga, it was because of the words of Mbuyane. And the women, the girl child also went to the armed struggle. But when they were now going to the Lancaster House, I didn't see any representation of a girl child. I saw Comrade Joshua Nkomo, I saw Comrade Robert Gabriel Mugabe, I saw a group of other males. I now wasn't seeing a girl child there, but they are the integral part of Zimbabwe and they're an integral part of Africa. By the way, because of slave trade, a lot of males, they were sent in ships to different parts of the world, meaning that the population of women in Zimbabwe and in Africa, generally we've got more women in Africa. We really need full representation of women doing amazing things in Africa and in Zimbabwe. And we are the custodians because we are the ones that own this land. We are the ones that own the minerals. We are the ones that do carrying children in our stomachs for 9 months. They come out into the world. I'll quote His Excellency, the late President Robert Gabriel Mugabe, saying women are important. And whenever someone is now about to cry, they say, my way, meaning that a woman is important. That's what His Excellency said. And when I look at him, I think he also looked at it in that manner. And these women, they're the very women right now, they are into the informal sector. They went into the informal sector because they realized that they cannot cry that there are no jobs in Zimbabwe. Neither are there good jobs in Africa. So they started doing small projects, small businesses, making soap, selling second-hand clothes, even brand new clothes, doing gardens, doing different things, livelihoods, going as far as Johannesburg to sell mops and brooms and different wares in foreign land to ensure that the children of Zimbabwe are fed. Most households in Zimbabwe, they are being fed by women, and those women, we call it ara as women, rese. And this ara that we are doing and that we've been doing, it has carried Zimbabwe to amazing platforms. So we end up calling ourselves the custodians because of that fact.
Okay. Right now, can we say a woman or the girl child in Zimbabwe, they are in a position where they can do whatever they want to sustain their families, doing the things that you have just mentioned, selling things, kuyadovi kumusha, madzimai achitobika wawa, vachita kuti vana vaende kuchikoro. Environment iri kuvaita here kuti vagone kuita izvozvo zvokuti varambe vachiriritira mhuri?
There is no environment that is conducive for women in Zimbabwe to be able to do small businesses or being informally employed in Zimbabwe. Why I say this is because I know that we're in the era of this pandemic of COVID-19. It's very unfortunate. But when I look at the fact that over 90%, I don't know, what exact percentage it is. Almost everybody is unemployed in Zimbabwe. And as unemployed as we are as Zimbabweans, if there would have been a conducive environment, even as informal as we are, if the government would have regularized the informal sector, it would have helped a lot to ensure that even when the COVID-19 comes, even when there is a lockdown, even after the lockdown, there would be means and ways for them to earn a living. For an example, I will just state, if we realize as the people that are put in important positions, there are people that have been put in important positions to go into parliament, to go into cabinet, to talk. What do you talk about in parliament? What do you talk about in the cabinet when you don't talk about the fact that there is a high unemployment rate? Therefore, let's make sure that the women or the young people in Zimbabwe have got certain areas where they do their informal trading. They need somewhere where they do their informal trading run. They need somewhere, they need addresses at a minimum cost, because by the way, it's not their fault that there are no jobs. As Zimbabweans, we have stood by the systems and policies that are in place of that. We want to take our land back, but this has got a bearing, because when you now take the land and you go through the issue of sanctions, you have to ensure that the citizens of Zimbabwe, because of sanctions, because of taking land, they are also empowered. Now we have to empower our own people, not to also disadvantage them on top of the fact that there are sanctions on top of everything around them. I would have thought that there would be means and ways of ensuring that they have got somewhere where they do business, address, somewhere comfortable that they will work, they go to work and come back home. I feel we are very disadvantaged, because even in this era of this COVID-19 pandemic, imagine someone who was selling sadza. We are saying, yes, regularize everything to do with how we should go about it as far as sanity and making everything clean for them to cook sadza or whatever business that they are into, in the small businesses that they do. But if you say the informal sector, stay at home. When they are at home, you say for them to come back, they need to be regularized. You go to City of Harare, you realize that all the licenses have gone up. I wonder if you want them to come back or you want to keep them in homes. Because the other day I went to inquire how much is now a license. I saw a certain figure. That figure wasn't there before the lockdown, but it's there after the lockdown. It's got nothing to do with inflation. This has got nothing to do with sanctions. It's got nothing to do with the COVID-19. It's got everything to do with, especially women, being so disempowered to make us not to even come back to work. When we don't come back to work, how are we going to feed our children? When we don't come back to work, how are we going to take our children to school? When we don't come back to work, how are we going to earn a living? How are we even going to ensure that there is food in the homes? These are all questions that I'm now asking. Why? Because I'm seeing people are going to cabinet every day. I'm seeing people are going to parliament every day. They even claim traveling as subsistence allowance, probably because I'm a former civil servant, so I know that people, when they go to work, they claim. What are they claiming if they end up disempowering their own people?
Someone was also saying the MPs and maybe everyone else who goes to the parliament, they get those travel and subsistence. They're also given allowances. They are also sleep in hotels. They drive nice cars. Someone was suggesting that there is need for them to drive small cars which are not fuel guzzlers like Vitz, so that they don't consume more of the taxpayers' money. What's your suggestion about that? Looking at the benefits that these parliamentarians get, the cabinet ministers get, what's your suggestion?
My family, the Mucheches, when they went, they did a lot in the armed struggle. I remember my father, my father's brother is also my father, Comrade Mucheche, he was offered a position to become a minister by His Excellency, the late President of the Republic of Zimbabwe, President Mugabe, to become a minister. But he said, President Mugabe, if I become one of your ministers, who is going to tell you when you do wrong? He was upright in his word. He was so upright in his thoughts. It's up to them. If they decide they want to buy Gazla cars and they want to spend the money that belongs to the children of the Republic of Zimbabwe in unnecessary manner, it's up to them. It's their time. That's my comment. The time will come. Because President Robert Gabriel Mugabe, before he died, he said, my sun is setting. Our sun is setting. And your sun is rising. Meaning us, the young people. As the young women, our time is coming. And when our time comes, it won't be a time or an era for using Gazlas as motor vehicles for us to move from point A to point B. I'm not there to judge them, because it's their time. They went to the armed struggle and they feel they've got the right to do what they're doing. But the time will come when they are not there. They will see how we will do it. And we will do it properly to ensure that the children of the Republic of Zimbabwe will enjoy the wealth, the mineral reserves, the wildlife reserves that God has given them.
You have said you are into business yourself. What is it that you are doing?
Right now I'm selling solar products, solar geysers, solar panels, inverters. I'm also selling water tanks. I was selling sadza before, but because of this COVID-19 pandemic, I had to stop. I'm here to regularize myself. When I'm regularized, I might come back to do the same business, or I move to something else. I'm also a farmer. Remember, I told you that I've got a diploma in agriculture from Blackford College of Agriculture. So I'm also a farmer. I've had an opportunity to go and train a lot to do with food security, because I believe it's an integral part of our lives.
Okay.
So that's basically what I do.
Right, let's go to farming. What challenges are you facing? We know the economy in Zimbabwe is melting. You have a desire to be part and parcel of people in Zimbabwe who want to make sure that the food security that we are talking about is at the levels that are expected with your contribution. But at the moment, the country is melting down. What is it that you are facing as a farmer in terms of challenges?
As far as farmers are concerned, just the agricultural sector in general, Zimbabwe needs enough mechanization for it to get to certain levels of doing real productivity as far as agriculture is concerned. We also have an issue of water. I would have thought that when they go to Parliament, they would talk about these issues. The issue of water, because water is the main thing of a plant. So if we don't ensure that we secure reserves of water, we tap that water, we bank that water, and we buy as much of pumps and irrigation systems to make sure these farmers that we have in Zimbabwe, they have enough irrigation equipment, then there's no farming that we're talking about. Because farming is all about water. And to secure food security, it means that to ensure that there is enough irrigation systems in Zimbabwe, and also to ensure that we've got enough seed fertilizers that reach to farmers in time. Because let's say, for an example, we are planning, when I was at Blackford, we would do a land use planning, 5-year crop rotation. If a government doesn't have a 5-year plan for its farmers and an immediate system to ensure that the farmer has the inputs in time to them to plant the crop in time, so that achieves its yield, because it's all about, farming is all about time. By the time the rains are coming, let's say the rains are late, we've got irrigation systems. Let's say the rains are early, we've already planted. I would have thought that we would not think outside the box, but even to throw away the box and do dynamic things to ensure that we have good food security. Farming is not about color. It's got nothing to do with color, because when I was at Black Phobie, we were mixed. Black, white, green, yellow. It's all about having the money and having the inputs and the implements for you to farm, and the passion to do it. And when you do it, do you know that food security, the highest office of food security, is as good as becoming a big general, like a general in the defense? A big minister in farming, that is food security, is as important as a big general in the defense forces. Yes.
Let's come back to the issue of abuse of inputs that the government has been able to give some farmers, maybe not all, but we have realized that diesel that has been given to farmers has been sold on black market. Seeds that have been given to some farmers, some of it we have seen it in some newspapers rotting in some people's storerooms. And some of the tractors that have been given to the farmers, we have seen them being driven up and about with no relationship whatsoever in tilling the land. And we have heard about cell-phone farming. Are there any women who have used the inputs wisely up to date? Is it just an issue which is related to men or male farmers, or all women as well are also involved in the abuse of mechanization and inputs system?
What I think out of farming is, it's very important that like we do on motor vehicles, before someone is given the authority to drive a car, they need a driver's license. As far as farming is concerned, I believe that the only thing that causes the abuse of resources is lack of know-how. Now is the time for us to talk about ensuring that our people in Zimbabwe are empowered in each and every area, be it male or female. They need training so that they end up having the passion for them to be serious farmers. When someone is taught how to drive, they have more passion in driving. They have more passion to maybe step on the brake so that they don't have an accident. But when they don't know how to drive, it becomes disastrous. So it's an angle that I look at farming. Rome wasn't built in a day. In as much as we are masters of our destiny, we need to learn how to plow the land. We need to learn the systems, means and ways to how to go about it, so that we don't end up misusing, abusing the system. Or sometimes you can put even more fertilizer than what was required, or you can even spray the wrong chemicals and burn the crop because you don't know how to go about it. So it's all about training. I would have wished that as a person who has done a bit to do with learning how to do agriculture, if each and every farmer in Zimbabwe, it is very easy for a government to pass something in parliament or even in the cabinet to just teach farmers how to farm. It takes seconds to have a consensus and agree on it, and the farmers will go there. Different agricultural colleges that farmers can go on a crash course for them to do that. It can be done, but they're just not doing it.
There's also an issue of value addition concerning farm produces. If you were going to be given a chance, what would you do on your farm?
If given a chance,
talking about value addition,
to do value addition, if I would get a chance, probably to get into floriculture, I would get into the growing of the flowers. One of the main markets for flowers is Holland. That's the biggest market for auction for flowers. I would pick the flowers, probably make arrangements. I've seen this at Luxaflow. It's a farm in Mazoe. When I was doing my diploma, I had a good look at it. It's called forward integration, where you now do value edification to the crop that we've done. You make an arrangement of the flowers that you've grown, and then now you export to foreign land. I believe that given an opportunity, I would do that. For an example, if I would be given an opportunity to get, say for an example, into maybe growing groundnuts, I would get into maybe manufacturing of peanut butter for export to different countries in Africa. It can be anywhere in the world. So it's called backward integration. You're now edifying from the ground you've grown, and now you're making peanut butter for you to export to different countries, which would even enhance even our foreign currency base in Zimbabwe and in Africa.
Let's also look at the situation right now. What is it that you are taking weather to? What is it that you are farming on your farm?
On the farm right now, I wasn't growing. I'm waiting for the rains to come. I'm planning on doing maize, just basic maize, this season.
And last year? I
don't have good irrigation systems right now, so I cannot afford right now to getting into irrigated maize. But just the basic of maize is what I'm going to grow this season, because of the fact that we're a landlocked country. We've been facing droughts, and there's an issue of this COVID-19 pandemic. It has affected a whole lot. Zimbabwe right now is facing a shortage of mealie meal. So my own point of view is to just grow the maize.
And are you getting paid enough to to remunerate the farmer from your sweat when you take the produce to GMB?
It is not easy with the current situation that Zimbabwe is facing. The economic situation in Zimbabwe is such that it's not allowing a farmer to really fully utilize the farm, and when they are paid, to go back into the field to do be it tobacco, be it maize. It's the situation in Zimbabwe is not conducive enough, because by the time you're now running around, probably you got paid in a Zim dollar. If you're going to now run around, it's not difficult for you to go back to that position that you were before.
Okay, and let's look at the other side of the business, where you are selling water tanks and solar panels. What other challenges are you facing as well in that sector?
The main problem that we are facing as we sell as women is the economic situation right now in Zimbabwe that everybody is facing. If someone cannot afford to buy a loaf of bread, to talk of solar panel, to talk of buying water tank, it is very difficult right now. Zimbabweans are hard pressed, left, right and center. If the money is not circulating properly, like right now, we've got a situation that, like what I was telling you, the informal sector is that sector that circulates the money in Zimbabwe. If they are stay-at-home garapamba, it means that there is no money for them to even circulate, so that they end up coming to buy water tanks, for them to come and buy solar panels. So that is, we're not even talking of clothes. People that have got shops for clothes, people have got shops for different kind of ways that they sell. It's very difficult for a Zimbabwean right now, because we sell to each other. We are surviving from each other. And right now, if we are garapamba and stay at home, it means that the country is at home.
Our president, President Emerson Mnangagwa, he's a listening president. If he's listening right now, what is it that you would say to him concerning the struggles that women are facing in Zimbabwe, even through to the First Lady Auxilia Mnangagwa?
That's a tough one.
It's not very tough because he's a listening president.
My own point of view, what I'm here to tell the president, Comrade Emmerson Mnangagwa, is there is a king, we could say a pharaoh. He had dreams. He didn't know what to do. When it failed for him, he asked, who can help me to make sure that these dreams are interpreted? And they called Joseph. Joseph was a slave who had gone into Potiphar's household, ended up in prison. And they called Joseph. And Joseph interpreted the dream. Joseph became the prime minister of Egypt. Egypt is in Africa. The Pharaoh swallowed his pride. He was a listening Pharaoh. I respect this Pharaoh because back then when they would talk of Egypt, it wouldn't be like what it is today. It would include the other countries that are surrounding Egypt. It was a very big empire. He prospered because he took young leadership into presidium. And I believe at the time that we are, if there are dreams that His Excellency Comrade Emmerson Mnangagwa dreams about, we are here as young as we are. We are the Josephs. We've got the Joseph anointing. I am Zimbabwe. And I'm here to tell you, you cannot go it alone. If that Pharaoh couldn't do it alone, did it with Joseph, why can't you? Your country is very small when we look at maybe square kilometers, way smaller than Egypt at that era. So if a big king or a big Pharaoh could swallow his pride and take younger people into presidium and ask them, how do I go about the economy? And the economics of Egypt became very good. It's not about just being a listening president. It's being an acting president and taking Zimbabwe to another level and handing over the stick of Zimbabwe to the younger generation. The time has come, Your Excellency, to hand over that stick that belonged to you and His Excellency President Robert Gabriel Mugabe. I think you know that your father, because Emmerson Mnangagwa's father is President Robert Gabriel Mugabe. President Robert Gabriel Mugabe is your father. He said our sun is setting and the young people's sun is rising. So if you are a listening president, you would listen to your own father, that your sun is set and our sun is coming. And when our sun is coming, it's not a sun of coming to cause havoc into Zimbabwe, but to edify Zimbabwe, to cause a rejuvenation, transformation, and transfiguration into the Republic of Zimbabwe and beyond. So if he is a listening president, he would listen to his heart. I think by now he is seeing that the economy is really bad. It's really that bad, Your Excellency, President Emmerson Mnangagwa. We are young. We have trained in your era for myself to become a prison officer so that I can safeguard, I can become a custodian of my country. If I learned from your era, I learned the best. And what I learned that is the best is not for us to end up having havoc in Zimbabwe. We want you to end up being in a situation whereby when you retire, you can even come. When we are out there, because we are custodians, we are going to continue with Zimbabwe. You come and also do official openings of tube trains, underground tube trains on top, new airports, new industrial parks. We've seen how they are doing it in South Africa. I haven't traveled a lot, but I've been to South Africa. I've seen how they do it in South Africa. They've got good industrial parks. I've seen Kyalami Industrial Park. I've seen different industrial parks in Midrand. The way they do it in South Africa before, I don't know how they do it in Germany or how they do it in France. But what I've just seen in our neighboring country, South Africa, if us, the young people, end up doing it, you also come to official openings. As a retired former president of the Republic of Zimbabwe, he hand over the stick and we will call you and we will also ask you to advise us how to go about. Because even the war veterans that fought with you in the armed struggle, talk of the Constantino Gouveia Chiwenga, talk of the parents Shiri, talk of Anamai Mjuru, we're talking of the surviving ones. They need proper medication now because they are getting older. So we want to ensure as the children, the younger children, younger than you, that if you give us the stick quickly, or if God, because maybe it's not up to you to give the stick, God is the one who gives the stick. If God gives us the stick, we will ensure that there are hospitals that have got enough medical equipment. We're talking of drugs and pharmaceuticals. So that if you get sick, you get treated in Zimbabwe. There are X-ray machines. There is enough equipment for you to get help. So that you don't even necessarily need to travel abroad to get medication. Because those are some of the things that we are talking of right now. Water and sanitation. We will ensure, Your Excellency, that when we have the stick, you drink clean water. And in this era of COVID-19, there is no soap, there is no water in the homes. We will ensure that there is soap and water, even way after the COVID-19 pandemic. We want to have a situation whereby we move from point A to point B. Mbuya Neander's era, first in Mvukela. Second, Mvukela, you are there with the founding fathers of Africa, Ana Mugabe, Ana Comrade Tongo, Ana Samora Machel. We are fighting for what? We are fighting for black people to enjoy all forms of freedoms. If a Zimbabwean or an African doesn't have water and soap, they are not free because they are subjected to many diseases.
Okay,
yes.
I hear you. And we also want to look at the situation that you found in the prisons. A lot of ministers and maybe prominent people only realize that the prisons are not a place to go because there is no food, there are no blankets, it's not habitable for anyone to live in them. You have been in the prisons yourself. Tell us the situation, what you think should be done to improve the livelihoods of the prisoners in the prisons in Zimbabwe.
As I've worked for the government, I've signed the Secrets Act. I don't know if it still applies to me right now as I talk to you, but when I worked at prisons, they had good food then.
Okay.
Even apples, prisoners used to eat. Right now, if a basic Zimbabwean cannot afford, not to talk of apple, just 1 meal per day, it means that it's so difficult, even for the prisoners. We need to ensure that prisons clean, habitable, safe, secure. I've seen prisons in Germany, in developed countries. Some even go as far as having even a microwave and small kitchen and everything around them. We need to have such a very good economy so much that we end up not having people in prisons, so much that we end up turning prisons we just maybe turn them into shopping malls or something. Because if we say let's improve on prisons, we're not improving on people. Let's improve on people so that we end up not even having prisons themselves, and we turn the Chikurubi maximum prison into a shopping mall, and then we take those women that are into small businesses and they have good shops. That's how I look at life.
Okay.
The reason why some people end up in prison is because of these economic situations. I would be really grateful, because I've been given opportunity before to go into prisons, even when I'm not a prison officer anymore. I would go and preach to prisoners. It's something that I do at my free time. Prisoners are as bad as they've been incarcerated. They've repented of their sins, because they confess to prison officers, they talk to each other, they repent of their sins. If you get into prison, you see prisoners, they are true to their heart. Some have even reformed. Some are jailbirds, fine, but most have even reformed. I remember when I got there, the last time I was there, I wasn't a prison officer anymore. And it's an experience that I also want to share with Zimbabweans and with everybody all over the world. They are very prayerful. The power of the Holy Spirit, I really realized it more at the age of 19 when I became a prison officer. When I became a prison officer, before you are given a position to become a leader, even in things of the Spirit. And I would ask prisoners to pray and to preach. Now when I've left prison service and I went to prisons, it was a great experience for me, because God says even with people that Paul and the Silases that are in prison, you need to remember them. And when I was there, it was a great experience for me, because the moment I sang Chakatanga Itzitsine Rudo, the whole prison, the maximum prison, the section that I was that day, they went Ndokuzouya kunamata, the whole section that I was, you feel the presence of the Holy Spirit. It's a powerful experience that I faced. They are true because they've confessed of their sins. These are type of things that when I look at as a Zimbabwean, I want to make time to go to prisoners, see them, talk to them, because some have raped, like in the maximum prison, the male maximum prison. Some have done fraud, some have done so much bad things, but they've asked for God to forgive them. And you need to go and see them, because when they didn't know that there's something else. But now when you go there and you see them and you talk to them, by the time I was laying hands on them, praying for them, I actually had to make time to run away, because now it was a big queue of, I don't have a church, I don't intend to have a church. I intend to lobby for people in different...
But they all wanted to take...
They wanted me to pray for them, and I intend to even go back.
Okay.
Politicians, you need to go and see people, the Pauls and the Silases. Remember, Paul and Silas, they were imprisoned about Jesus Christ. Even if you're a member of parliament, even if you're a councillor, even if you're a president or a vice president, make time to go to prisons and see, even if you're in the corporate world, you're a big CEO of a big bank, wherever you are, go and see. They are your brothers and their sisters. Go for all the time you've been a chief executive, a managing director of a bank or a company that does fertilizers or a milling mill. You've never made time to go and see these people. They are the marginalized. They are out there in the outskirts. Nobody wants them. But going to see them can transform even a nation. You know, prisoners can grow for a country.
Yeah, I think you are yes. Very right, because the president, our president, has been in prison himself. I think it clicks, and I think you are on the same level. He understands the life in the prisons. But before we conclude this program, I just wanted to find out from you. Imimi madzimai munonza mugone kusumudzira mwakatada uta MP kautada CEO kana utada ku ane business munodonzerana pasi icho kwade. ndimi makawanda muZimbabwe, ndimi munovhota zvinzvimbo zviriko kuparliament, asi kana makuenda kunovhota munovhotera MP wechirume asi muchisiya MP wechikadzi, kana kuti president wechikadzi muchisiya muchitora MP negreen president wechirume.
Ndinoti ini ndinoona sekudai ndichizvarwa ndanga ndichiona zvichinzi nafunga wamwaitaura kuti tinopinza madzimai muparliament. Mukaona tichiri madzimai pekuti tinopinzwa muparliament, tinopinzwa musenata, tinopinzwa mukansela, hatisati tamadzimai ane chiremerera chinooneka, nekuti tiri kugadzirirwa zvigaro. Asi ndinoona chiono chekuti Mugabe pavaitaura kuti quota system yemadzimai vaida kuedza kuti madzimai vapinde mupresidium kuitira kuti vasapiwe zvigaro nevanhurume, nekuti kana ndakupiwa chigaro nemunhurume ndakutozoita zvanga zvememba zvangaitira zvezvo kuti Mucheche vakati handikwanisa kuti undipe chigaro nekuti ndichatadza kuudza zvekuita. Kana tichiri kupiwa zvigaro nevanhurume zvinoreva kuti hatisati tazvimirira kuti tinyatsa kutaura zvido zvine chekuita nenyika. Asi kana tichinge taane zvigaro zvisiri zvekupiwa nevanhurume zvinopiwa naMwari chaizvo, zvinoreva kuti we ensure kuti this water and sanitation. We're talking of a pregnant woman. Right now in the era of COVID-19, I saw all the shops were closed. And I even thought to myself, they're going to cabinet. What are they talking? A pregnant woman, where is she getting preparation for maternity to go to? Because there's something that is called delivery. A pregnant woman delivers at any time. All the shops were closed. I cannot go into Edgar's because by the way we're talking of that informal sector, it's now almost formal. If we don't have women in presidium, there's nothing to talk about with women. Women are not really women of being jealous. I see women as powerful. We are called, hey, we gossip against each other. But that's like type of trait that you see in us. If you make a SWOT analysis on us, it's also a strength. If we can have time to gossip, we can have time to really go as, let's say I was busy at gossiping. I can be very good at becoming a minister of tourism and going to lobby for Zimbabwe to become a very big tourist destination. So it's a jersey that is worn inside out, probably. But I believe women have got great strength to enhance this country and manufacture and develop and create. His Excellency President Robert Mugabe, the late, he saw the strength in us and he wanted us to get certain levels. I hope we get there.
Thank you so much. Anything burning that you'd want to tell to our viewers right now in 1 minute?
I would like to tell Zimbabweans all over the world during this era of the pandemic of COVID-19, we've been going through a lockdown. This is the time for you, Zimbabwe, to arise. Arise and shine. They say mbuya nehanda kufa vachishereketa kuti tinotora sei nyika, tora gidi uzvitonge. Then at that time they took the AK-47. Now it's the time to take the gidi of manufacturing equipment, mining equipment. Let's get into farming. Gidi redu, let it be for productivity. Wherever you are in the world as Zimbabwean as you are, let's come together and build our nation. Let's come together. This country belongs to us. It doesn't belong to... Yes, President Robert Mugabe was founding father, but Zimbabwe doesn't belong to him. Neither does it really belong to the current president. It belongs to us. Let's come together and build this country to become what we want out of it. So much that even the president, any sitting president that will be there in the country, will come to us and say, you're doing this. I'm very encouraged, because maybe the president himself and his government won't be having the money to do that. So wherever you are in the world, as Zimbabwean as you are, I know there are people in the diaspora. Let's come back home and start building in our roots. Even some Africans, I've seen some Americans, black Americans, they faced a lot of brutality in America. Come and invest in Zimbabwe. Come and invest in Africa. I'm encouraging you. I'm Elizabeth Mucheche Parirenyatwa. I'm encouraging you to come and invest in this wonderful country called Zimbabwe, in this wonderful continent that is called Africa. Make it great. We are capable. We've got the land, virgin land. We've got some areas that are still having elephants, meaning that we've got space for you as diasporians and for Zimbabweans. I thank you.
Thank you so much, Zimbabweans. We are being encouraged to come and build the Zimbabwe that we want and make it a first world. Those are the words of Elizabeth Mucheche Parirenyatwa. Thank you so much for watching SlyMedia TV. My name is Silvester. Continue to like our page and share this broadcast, and continue to discuss things that makes us a unique from other nations and other people elsewhere. Thank you so much for watching. I would like to say thank you so much to Magnify, who is our camera person today. In the name of Jesus, God bless you.